For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the morning of August 12, 1997, 27-year-old Zachary Nelson shouldered his survey gear and headed into the dense wilderness of Bridger-Teton National Forest, Wyoming. The ambitious forest ranger trainee was conducting routine wildlife monitoring as part of his certification program. He never returned, despite an extensive search operation involving multiple agencies, helicopter sweeps, and ground teams combing thousands of acres of rugged terrain. Zachary seemed to have vanished into the vast Wyoming wilderness. For 22 years, his fellow rangers and family lived with haunting questions about his fate. Then, in the summer of 2019, a devastating forest fire stripped away decades of secrets, revealing evidence of a sinister operation that had been hiding in plain sight. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Zachary Nelson and how a hidden criminal enterprise in America's protected forests led to his death. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. The morning of June 12, 1997, dawned clear and crisp over Bridger-Teton National Forest, its vast expanse of pine and spruce stretching endlessly toward the Wyoming sky. For 27-year-old Zachary Nelson, it was more than just another summer morning. It was the beginning of his final training assignment as a forest ranger, a position he had dreamed of since childhood. The Bridger-Teton's pristine wilderness covered over 3 million acres, a labyrinth of dense forest, rocky outcrops, and hidden valleys. Zachary had spent months preparing for this solo wildlife survey, meticulously studying maps and checking his equipment. His supervisor had described him as methodical, passionate, and perhaps most importantly, cautious. At 6:45 a.m., Zachary's Forest Service truck pulled into the remote Thunder Creek trailhead. The morning air was cool enough to require his standard-issue green jacket, which he wore over a light hiking shirt. In his backpack, he carried 3 days' worth of supplies: a satellite phone, detailed topographical maps, and his cherished field notebook, a leather-bound journal where he documented every observation with scientific precision. The last person to see Zachary alive was fellow ranger trainee Mark Stevens, who helped him double-check his gear before departing. "Everything looks good to go," Zachary had said, shouldering his pack with a confident smile. "I'll radio in at the scheduled checkpoints." He set off down the narrow trail, his boots crunching on the gravel, until the dense forest swallowed him from view. The first sign of trouble came that evening when Zachary missed his scheduled 6 p.m. radio check-in. Protocol dictated waiting until the following morning before raising alarms. Experienced rangers often faced communication difficulties in the rugged terrain. But when dawn broke on June 13th with still no word from Zachary, Ranger Captain Diana Foster initiated search procedures. At the trailhead, they found Zachary's truck exactly where he had left it. His personal belongings remained untouched: a duffel bag containing spare clothes, his wallet with $43, and a paperback copy of A Sand County Almanac, with his sister's inscription on the inside cover. Everything appeared normal, suggesting he had begun his survey as planned. The initial search covered a 5-mile radius from the trailhead, focusing on Zachary's planned route through the Thunder Creek drainage. Experienced rangers, search dogs, and local volunteers combed the dense undergrowth, calling his name into the vast silence of the forest. The first day yielded nothing: no tracks, no equipment, no sign of disturbance. As hours stretched into days, the search expanded. Helicopters swept the canopy with infrared cameras while ground teams methodically gridded the wilderness. The weather remained clear, but the forest's complexity worked against them. Thick stands of lodgepole pine created natural barriers, while steep ravines and boulder fields offered countless places where a person could vanish without trace. On day 4, Search teams found a single bootprint matching Zachary's size near a small stream, 3 miles off his planned route. The discovery sparked momentary hope, but the trail ended there, as if Zachary had simply stepped off the face of the earth. By the end of the first week, over 200 people had participated in the search. The local media arrived, broadcasting images of Zachary's earnest face across Wyoming households. His family maintained a vigil at the ranger station, their hope visibly eroding with each passing day. Detective Morgan Phillips of the Teton County Sheriff's Office reviewed every detail. Zachary's bank accounts showed no unusual activity. His relationships, both personal and professional, revealed no conflicts. His last cell phone ping had registered at the trailhead, exactly where expected. Every conventional explanation for a missing person seemed to evaporate under scrutiny. As June turned to July, the dense summer foliage began concealing whatever traces might have remained. The official search was scaled back, though weekend volunteers continued combing the forest for months. Zachary Nelson had become another mysterious disappearance in America's vast wilderness, his fate unknown, his final moments unwitnessed by anyone but the silent forest itself. What no one could know then was that the truth lay buried beneath years of fallen pine needles, waiting for an act of nature to reveal a story far darker than anyone had imagined. The forest would keep its secret for 22 more years, while the answer to Zachary's disappearance slowly decomposed beneath the Wyoming soil. As summer heat settled over Teton National Forest, Ranger Captain Diana Foster transformed the small ranger station into a command center. Veterans of wilderness operations, Foster and her team knew that time worked against them in missing persons cases. Every hour that passed degraded evidence and diminished survival chances. Foster's first priority was a detailed analysis of Zachary's equipment and preparations. His truck yielded important clues about his mindset and intentions. The vehicle was properly parked, locked, and contained his civilian clothes neatly folded, all indicating he had departed exactly as planned. His satellite phone charging cable remained plugged into the cigarette lighter, suggesting he had left with a full battery. The presence of his wallet and other valuables ruled out robbery as an immediate concern. Detective Morgan Phillips arrived from Teton County Sheriff's Office on day 3, bringing fresh eyes to the investigation. A seasoned investigator with 20 years of experience in wilderness cases, Phillips immediately focused on Zachary's planned survey route. The young ranger had meticulously marked his intended path on topographical maps, including planned water sources and camping locations. Everything spoke of careful preparation, not reckless adventure. The investigation faced immediate challenges from the terrain itself. The Thunder Creek area featured dense undergrowth that quickly obscured tracks, while afternoon thunderstorms regularly washed away what little evidence might have existed. Search dogs struggled in the complex air currents that swirled through the valleys, making scent tracking nearly impossible. Interviews with nearby campers and hikers proved equally frustrating. A family camping 3 miles from the trailhead reported hearing what might have been a distant shout late on the first evening, but summer winds playing through the pine trees often created similar sounds. 2 hikers who had passed through the area remembered seeing fresh boot prints, but couldn't pinpoint the location with any certainty. Foster's team discovered one potentially significant detail. Zachary's field notebook from previous surveys showed he had recently documented an unusual number of dead black bears in the region. While bear mortality wasn't uncommon, the pattern had caught his attention enough to warrant special notation. However, without the current notebook he had carried into the forest, the significance of these observations remained unclear. The investigation expanded to include aerial surveys using forward-looking infrared cameras, which could detect heat signatures through the forest canopy. These flights revealed dozens of promising locations, but ground teams investigating each site found only natural features or wildlife. The forest's vastness seemed to swallow every effort to uncover its secrets. Weather complicated the search efforts significantly. Though June typically brought stable conditions to Wyoming's high country, 1997 proved unusually volatile. Afternoon thunderstorms repeatedly forced search teams to seek shelter, while lightning strikes created new hazards. The meteorological challenges led Phillips to consider whether weather might have played a role in Zachary's disappearance. As the investigation entered its second week, Foster and Phillips developed several working theories. The most obvious, that Zachary had suffered an accident and lay injured somewhere, seemed increasingly unlikely as every possible location was searched. The possibility of wildlife encounter, particularly with the area's grizzly bears, remained open but lacked physical evidence. More troubling was the growing suspicion that they might be dealing with foul play, though no clear motive presented itself. The investigation's scope gradually widened to include historical incidents in the area. Records showed 3 other disappearances in Bridgerton over the past decade, though none shared obvious connections to Zachary's case. Each had been attributed to the inherent dangers of wilderness travel, but now Foster found herself reviewing these files with renewed interest. By the end of the second week, the initial investigation had generated hundreds of pages of reports but few concrete leads. Zachary's family remained at the ranger station, their presence a constant reminder of the human cost of each passing day without answers. Foster and Phillips could only provide them with the cold comfort that the investigation would continue, even as the likelihood of finding Zachary alive diminished with each sunset. The forest held its secrets close, and for now, the fate of Zachary Nelson remained hidden in its depths. Neither Foster nor Phillips could have imagined that the truth would take more than 2 decades to emerge, or that it would reveal a criminal enterprise operating in plain sight within their jurisdiction all along. As summer faded into autumn, the search for Zachary Nelson gradually diminished from an urgent rescue operation to a somber cold case. The dense forest that had first welcomed the young ranger trainee now stood as a silent monument to his disappearance, its seasonal changes marking time while investigators struggled to maintain momentum. By September 1997, Ranger Captain Diana Foster found herself facing the hardest decision of her career, scaling back the active search operations. The vast resources deployed in the initial weeks could not be sustained indefinitely, and each passing day made the likelihood of finding new evidence increasingly remote. The regular search teams that had combed the Thunder Creek drainage were reduced to occasional patrols, their hopes of success dwindling with the falling leaves. The impact on Forest Service morale proved profound. Rangers who had worked alongside Zachary found themselves second-guessing their own solo assignments, while training protocols underwent immediate revision. No trainee would now venture into remote areas without a partner, and satellite tracking devices became mandatory equipment. Zachary's empty locker in the ranger station remained untouched, becoming an unofficial memorial that no one had the heart to clear out. His family refused to let the case fade into obscurity. Each June, on the anniversary of his disappearance, they organized a memorial service at the Thunder Creek trailhead. Fellow rangers, local volunteers, and community members gathered to remember the young man who had vanished into the wilderness. These gatherings served another purpose, keeping the case alive in public memory and reminding potential witnesses that someone, somewhere, might hold the key to solving the mystery. Detective Morgan Phillips maintained the case file on his desk, reviewing it periodically for anything they might have missed. The boot print near the stream, the unexplained pattern of bear deaths, the family's report of a distant shout, each detail was examined and re-examined until the papers became worn at the edges. Phillips developed a habit of visiting the trailhead during his off hours, walking the first mile of Zachary's route, trying to see something new in the familiar landscape. The years began to accumulate like layers of forest debris on the forest floor. 5 years passed, then 10. New rangers joined the service, learning about Zachary's case during their training as a cautionary tale. His photograph remained posted in the ranger station, his young face unchanged while those around it aged. The mystery became part of local folklore, discussed in hushed tones around campfires and retold why. Varying degrees of accuracy in the town's coffee shops. Annual case reviews yielded nothing new. Technology, advanced GPS systems became more precise, satellite imagery more detailed. But none of these improvements helped pierce the veil of mystery surrounding Zachary's disappearance. The forest had swallowed whatever evidence might have existed, breaking it down season by season, until it became indistinguishable from the natural decay of the wilderness. Diana Foster watched the case's files grow thinner in relevance, while growing thicker with accumulated reports and reviews. Each passing year made it more difficult to maintain hope for resolution. She kept in touch with Zachary's family, sharing their frustration as leads dwindled to nothing and witnesses' memories faded. The case remained technically open but practically frozen, like a stream locked beneath winter ice. By 2018, 21 years had passed since Zachary Nelson walked into the forest. His parents had aged into their 70s, their hair gone white, their hope for answers tempered by time but never extinguished. The younger rangers now spoke of him as almost mythical, the dedicated trainee, whose disappearance had changed their protocols and procedures, whose story was told to every new recruit as a reminder of the wilderness's unforgiving nature. The case seemed destined to remain one of Wyoming's enduring mysteries, another unsolved disappearance in America's vast wild spaces. No one could have predicted that nature itself would soon tear away the forest's concealing canopy, exposing long-buried secrets to the light of day. The truth that had lain hidden for so long was about to emerge from the earth itself, brought forth by an act of destruction that would finally bring answers to those who had waited so patiently for so long. The summer of 2019 brought one of the most devastating fire seasons in Bridger Teton's recent history. A lightning strike in late July ignited the dense undergrowth near Thunder Creek, and within days, the blaze had consumed thousands of acres. As firefighters battled to contain the inferno, nature was inadvertently preparing to reveal a 2-decade-old secret. In the fire's aftermath, as assessment teams surveyed the damage, wildlife biologist Marcus Chen made a discovery that would shake the investigation to its core. While documenting the fire's impact on a remote clearing, Chen's boot struck something solid beneath the ash-covered soil. What emerged from the earth was unmistakably human. A skull, partially exposed by the fire's intense heat and the subsequent erosion. The recovery operation began immediately. Forensic anthropologists carefully excavated the site, revealing a complete skeleton buried beneath what appeared to be an old campsite. Alongside the remains, they found fragments of a leather-bound notebook, its pages partially preserved by the soil's oxygen-poor environment. The book's water-damaged cover bore a single legible word: Nelson. Diana Foster arrived at the scene within hours of the discovery. After 22 years, she found herself standing at what was likely the final resting place of Zachary Nelson. But the site held more than just Zachary's remains. As investigators expanded their search perimeter, they uncovered evidence of a sophisticated poaching operation. Hidden beneath years of forest debris were the tools of illegal wildlife trafficking: surgical equipment, preservation chemicals, and most tellingly, dozens of empty bile extraction kits. The discovery pointed to a massive black bear poaching operation, one that had apparently been active during the period of Zachary's disappearance. Elena Rodriguez, a specialist in wildlife trafficking from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, was brought in to analyze the site. Her expertise revealed a grim picture. The equipment matched those used in illegal bear bile harvesting operations. where poachers extracted the valuable fluid for sale in traditional Asian medicine markets. The operation's scale suggested years of systematic poaching, with evidence indicating hundreds of bears had been processed at this remote location. Laboratory analysis of Zachary's remains revealed blunt force trauma to the skull, confirming the long-held suspicion of foul play. More crucial was the discovery that several pages of his field notebook had survived, preserved between layers of decomposed leather. Though badly damaged, the pages contained observations of suspicious activity, including descriptions of vehicle movements and strange equipment that Zachary had observed in the days before his death. Detective Phillips found himself facing an entirely new investigation. The fire had not only exposed Zachary's remains, but it also uncovered one of the largest illegal wildlife trafficking operations ever discovered in the American West. The bear bile trade, worth millions on the black market, provided a clear motive for silencing a curious forest ranger who might have exposed the operation. The evidence painted a horrifying picture of Zachary's final days. His meticulous notes suggested he had unknowingly stumbled upon the poaching operation during his wildlife survey. The physical evidence indicated he had been attacked from behind, likely while documenting his discoveries. His body had been buried beneath what would become the poacher's long-term base of operations, a final insult to the young ranger who had died trying to protect the wilderness he loved. As summer turned to autumn, the charred forest began its slow recovery, but the investigation was just beginning. With new evidence literally rising from the ashes, Diana Foster and Morgan Phillips found themselves racing to solve not just a decades-old murder, but to expose a criminal enterprise that had operated undetected in their forest for years. The truth about Zachary Nelson's fate had finally emerged from the earth, and with it, the chance to bring his killer to justice. The discovery of Zachary Nelson's remains transformed what had been a cold case into the most significant wildlife crime investigation in Wyoming's history. Elena Rodriguez arrived from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, with 2 decades of experience tracking illegal animal product trafficking. But even she was stunned by the sophistication of the operation they had uncovered. In the Evidence Recovery Center, Rodriguez methodically laid out the recovered equipment. The surgical tools were professional grade, suggesting someone with medical knowledge. The bile extraction kits matched those used in Asian bear farms, where bears were kept in horrific conditions for continuous harvesting. Each kit could process multiple bears, and the quantity found indicated hundreds of animals had been killed over the years. Bear bile, Rodriguez explained to the investigation team, commanded extraordinary prices in traditional medicine markets. A single gallbladder could fetch thousands of dollars, making the enterprise incredibly lucrative. The remote location of Bridgerton provided perfect cover. Poachers could operate for days without risk of discovery, processing their grim harvest far from prying eyes. Detective Phillips and his team began mapping historical wildlife crime reports across the region. A pattern emerged. Over the past 25 years, game wardens had documented suspicious bear carcasses, animals found with surgical incisions, but otherwise untouched. These cases, previously thought unrelated, now formed a clear trajectory of criminal activity. The investigation team established a timeline. The poaching operation appeared to have begun in the early 1990s, with activity concentrated during summer months when bears were most active. By cross-referencing Forest Service records, they identified several suspicious campsite permits issued to the same names over multiple years. One name appeared with striking regularity: Vincent Young. Records showed he had obtained camping permits for the Thunder Creek area every summer from 1992 to 2018. His permits often coincided with periods when mutilated bear carcasses were discovered. Young's background revealed medical training. He had worked as a veterinary technician before retiring in 1990. The team's focus narrowed as they examined Young's history. His finances showed irregular deposits to offshore accounts, often following his summer camping trips. Import records linked him to companies in Asia known as fronts for wildlife trafficking. Most damning were shipping manifests showing regular packages sent to traditional medicine distributors in Vietnam and China. Diana Foster contributed crucial historical knowledge. She remembered Young from occasional encounters in the forest, describing him as a solitary figure who always chose remote campsites. He had even attended 2 of Zachary's memorial services, standing quietly at the back, a detail that now seemed chillingly calculated. As evidence mounted, Rodriguez identified a sophisticated network connecting Young's operation to international buyers. The bear bile was smuggled out through a complex chain of intermediaries, making detection nearly impossible. Conservative estimates suggested the operation had generated millions in illegal profits while claiming the lives of hundreds of protected black bears. The investigation team worked meticulously, knowing they would have one chance to build an airtight case. They tracked Young's movements, documented his connections, and pieced together decades of criminal activity. Each discovery reinforced their growing certainty that they had finally identified not just a wildlife trafficking kingpin, but Zachary Nelson's killer. The breakthrough came when forensic analysts recovered readable text from Zachary's preserved field notes. His final entries described suspicious activity at what he called Site C, precisely where his remains were found. He had documented strange equipment, unusual vehicle traffic, and most critically, a detailed description of a man matching Young's appearance carrying surgical tools into the forest. The evidence painted a clear picture. Zachary had stumbled upon Young's operation during his survey work. His training and dedication to wildlife protection had cost him his life, but his detailed notes would prove to be Young's undoing. After 22 years, justice for both Zachary and the countless bears killed for profit was finally within reach. The break in the case came through the most delicate of evidence, pages from Zachary Nelson's field notebook, preserved by chance in the oxygen-poor soil beneath his remains. Forensic document specialists worked for weeks, carefully separating and treating the fragile pages, revealing text that had remained hidden for over 2 decades. The notebook's contents proved more valuable than anyone could have anticipated. Zachary's precise, methodical nature had created an unknowing testimony against his killer. His final entries, dated June 12 and 13, 1997, detailed observations that now read like crucial evidence. Site C shows signs of regular use, he had written. Heavy vehicle tracks despite no registered permits. Medical-grade equipment visible through tent flap, unusual for recreational camping. Most damning was his description of an encounter on what would be his final day alive. Observed male subject, approximately 50 years old, gray hair, carrying surgical equipment into forest at 7:45. Subject became confrontational when he noticed me, claimed to be conducting personal research. Equipment inconsistent with stated purpose, proceeding with caution, documenting all observations. Detective Phillips and his team cross-referenced these descriptions with historical permit records. Vincent Young's name appeared repeatedly, his documented appearances aligning perfectly with Zachary's observations. Young's permit applications showed he had maintained the same campsite location for years, precisely where Zachary's remains were discovered. The investigation accelerated as more evidence emerged. Analysis of Young's financial records revealed a pattern of large cash deposits following his summer camping trips. International shipping manifests showed regular packages sent to Asian medical supply companies, front organizations known to wildlife trafficking experts. The timing of these shipments corresponded exactly with Young's forest excursions. Elena Rodriguez's expertise proved crucial in connecting the final dots. She identified Young's operation as one of the most sophisticated bear bile harvesting schemes ever uncovered in North America. The surgical precision of his work, coupled with his knowledge of international trafficking routes, suggested years of refinement. Conservative estimates indicated he had killed over 200 bears during his 15-year operation. Young's movements were meticulously tracked through decades of Forest Service records. He had established a precise routine, always choosing remote locations, always operating during specific seasons when bear activity was highest. His background as a veterinary technician explained his surgical expertise, while his connections to Asian medicine markets provided both motive and means for his operation. The most chilling discovery came through Diana Foster's institutional memory. She recalled Young attending several of Zachary's memorial services over the years, standing quietly at the back, watching the proceedings with what she had interpreted as respectful solemnity. Now, those appearances took on a far more sinister aspect, a killer returning to witness the grief he had caused, perhaps ensuring his crime remained undetected. Zachary's final notes provided the crucial link between his death and Young's illegal operation. His detailed descriptions of the campsite, equipment, and suspicious activity matched exactly with what investigators had uncovered at the burial site. The young ranger's dedication to his duty had led him to document the very operation that would ultimately claim his life. As the evidence mounted, investigators realized they had uncovered not just a solution to a decades-old murder, but one of the largest wildlife trafficking operations ever discovered in the American West. Zachary Nelson, the dedicated young ranger who disappeared on a summer morning in 1997, had unknowingly documented his own murder, and in doing so, had provided the key to bringing down a criminal enterprise that had operated unchecked for over 2 decades. The pieces had finally fallen into place, transforming years of speculation into actionable evidence. Vincent Young's careful world of illegal wildlife trafficking and murder was about to collapse, brought down by the very detailed observations of the young ranger he had killed to protect his secrets. After 22 years, justice for Zachary Nelson was finally within reach. The arrest of Vincent Young occurred on a quiet Tuesday morning in October 2019, far from the forest where he had operated with impunity for so many years. Federal agents found him tending his garden in suburban Idaho Falls, the mundane domesticity of the scene belying the darkness of his crimes. At 71, his gray hair had turned white, but investigators noted he still maintained the physical strength that had allowed him to operate his illegal enterprise for so long. In the Teton County Courthouse, Young's trial became a landmark case in wildlife trafficking prosecution. The evidence presented painted a devastating picture of systematic slaughter. Hundreds of bears killed over 2 decades, their bodies callously discarded after harvesting the valuable bile. Prosecutors methodically detailed how Young had turned his veterinary knowledge to criminal purposes, using his expertise to establish one of the largest illegal wildlife trafficking operations ever uncovered in North America. Zachary Nelson's family sat through every day of the proceedings, their presence a quiet reminder of the human cost of Young's crimes. When the prosecution presented Zachary's preserved field notes, his mother wept silently as her son's precise handwriting was displayed on courtroom screens. His final observations, documenting the very operation that would lead to his death, proved crucial in securing Young's conviction. The verdict, when it came, was decisive. Young received life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, not only for Zachary's murder, but for the systematic destruction of protected wildlife that had generated millions in illegal profits. The judge's sentencing remarks emphasized the dual nature of Young's crimes, the taking of a young man's life and the devastating impact on wildlife conservation. The case sparked immediate changes in forest management and wildlife protection. The U.S. Forest Service established the Zachary Nelson Initiative, implementing enhanced security protocols for rangers working in remote areas. GPS tracking became mandatory, and solo patrols were permanently discontinued. A new task force focused specifically on wildlife trafficking was created, with Elena Rodriguez appointed as its first director. In the aftermath of the trial, Ranger Captain Diana Foster led the establishment of a permanent memorial at the Thunder Creek trailhead. A bronze plaque now marks the spot where Zachary began his final journey, its inscription honoring both his sacrifice and his dedication to wildlife protection. The memorial has become a gathering point for new ranger trainees, who learn about Zachary's story as part of their commitment to forest conservation. Detective Morgan Phillips, speaking at a law enforcement conference months after the trial, emphasized how the case had transformed wildlife crime investigation. The techniques developed during the Young investigation became a model for similar operations nationwide. Phillips noted that Zachary's detailed documentation, even in the face of danger, had created a template for evidence gathering in remote locations. The impact on illegal wildlife trafficking was significant. The exposure of Young's operation revealed vulnerabilities in forest monitoring that had allowed his crimes to go undetected. International cooperation between law enforcement agencies increased, leading to the disruption of several similar trafficking networks. The black market price of bear bile dropped as suppliers feared increased scrutiny. For Zachary's family, the resolution brought long-awaited closure but also renewed grief. His father, speaking at the memorial's dedication, reflected on how his son's dedication to wildlife protection had ultimately led to changes that would protect both animals and future rangers. The family established a scholarship fund for aspiring wildlife conservation students, ensuring Zachary's passion would continue to inspire future generations. The forest itself seemed to mark the case's resolution. The area where Zachary's remains were found, scarred by fire and excavation, began its natural regeneration. New growth emerged from the blackened earth, while bears, protected by strengthened conservation measures, returned to their ancient territories. The wilderness that had held its secrets for so long now stood as a testament to both tragedy and renewal. Vincent Young's imprisonment marked the end of a dark chapter in Bridger Teton's history, but Zachary Nelson's legacy continues to influence wildlife protection efforts across the nation. His story, once a mysterious disappearance, has become a powerful reminder of the dedication of those who work to protect America's wilderness, and the ultimate price some pay in service of that mission.